Her hands are shaking before she even understands why. The decanter did not slip. It was never in her grip long enough to slip. It simply fell, the way everything in this house eventually falls when Jae-sung-moon walks into a room he did not invite anyone into. She was not supposed to be here, not at this hour, not in this office, not anywhere near the black marble desk that only one man in this estate is allowed to touch. But the door had been open, and curiosity, the one thing 3 years of training had almost killed in her, had pulled her 2 steps too far inside. He does not raise his voice. He never has to. The men who work for Jae-sung-moon learned years ago that silence from him is worse than any shout could ever be, and the staff learned it faster than anyone, passed down like a warning from one new hire to the next before anyone dares finish their first week. Adaora keeps her eyes on the floor, on the glittering wreckage between her knees, because looking up is not something the invisible are allowed to do. 3 years. 3 years of ironing shirts before the sun came up, of scrubbing floors after the house had gone quiet, of moving through hallways like something the light passes straight through without noticing. 3 years of memorizing which staircases creak and which do not, which rooms he prefers empty when he walks past them, which hour of the morning he takes his coffee black and silent at the same window every single day. 3 years of being exactly what the other staff called her behind cupped hands, low enough that they thought she never heard it, though she always did. The invisible woman. She had earned that name on purpose. She had built it, glass floor by glass floor, silence by silence, because being seen in this house was never safe. Not for someone carrying what she was carrying, though even she could not have told you, kneeling here tonight, exactly what that weight was made of. But right now, on her knees, surrounded by shattered crystal in the one room she had been warned never to enter, invisibility feels like it is finally about to run out. She looks up. She does not mean to. Her body simply refuses the one rule that has kept her alive in this house, and her eyes lift straight into his before her mind can stop them. She does not look away. She does not apologize. For 3 full seconds, Adaora Balewa does something no member of the Moon household staff has done in longer than anyone working there can remember. She looks at Jae-sung-moon like he is a man and not a verdict. And for 3 full seconds, Jae-sung-moon, a man who has survived 2 assassination attempts by never letting anything catch him off guard, finds himself unable to move, unable to speak, unable to do the one thing that has kept him breathing his entire adult life, which is notice a threat before it notices him back. Her eyes are dark brown, wide and entirely unafraid, and that, more than anything else in the room, is what unsettles him. He tells her to clean it up and leave. 4 words. That is all he gives her. 4 words delivered in a voice so level it should not be able to carry the weight it does. And yet, Adaora feels each one land somewhere under her ribs, sharp and cold, like a verdict dressed up as instruction. She gathers the glass in silence, hands shaking in a way she prays he cannot see, and for the first time in 3 years, she is grateful for a rule she almost broke a moment ago. Do not be seen. She had broken it. For 3 seconds she had broken it completely, and now every nerve in her body is screaming at her to disappear again before he changes his mind about letting her walk out of that office at all. She does not hear him leave. She only hears the silence after the door closes, and somehow that silence is louder than anything that came before it. Before the sun fully clears the estate wall, Adaora is already awake, already dressed, already rehearsing the version of herself the house expects to see. She pins her hair the same way every morning, low, tight, unremarkable. She practices, without meaning to, the exact angle at which she will hold her chin when she passes anyone important in the hallway. Low enough to seem deferential, not so low it looks like fear. It is a performance she has given every single day for 3 years, and until last night she had never once broken character. She wonders, staring at her own reflection, whether the version of herself that looked up at Jae-sung-moon last night is still in there somewhere, or whether it was a stranger wearing her face for exactly 3 seconds. She is honestly not sure which answer frightens her more. Word of the broken decanter has already travelled the length of the staff quarters by the time Adaora reaches the kitchen for her morning tasks. Nobody says her name directly, they rarely do, but she catches enough fragments, a decanter, his office, still employed, to understand that the story has already outgrown what actually happened, twisting itself into something stranger with every mouth it passes through. She keeps her head down and pours the morning coffee exactly the way she always has, and if her hands are steadier than they were last night, it is only because she has had all night to practice being calm again. He does not remember faces. It is a discipline he built the way other men build muscle, deliberately, painfully over years, until it became something closer to instinct than choice. Faces are liabilities. Faces are the first thing an enemy studies before they decide how to hurt you, and Jae-sung-moon learned that lesson at an age most children are still being taught how to tie their shoes. He has forgotten the faces of men he has personally destroyed. He has forgotten the faces of women his family paraded in front of him for years before Chaewon, women whose names he agreed to without ever quite looking at them. He cannot, for the life of him, stop seeing hers. It bothers him more than he will admit, this specific, stubborn detail, the exact shade of brown her eyes went in that low light, the precise angle of her chin when she refused to lower it. He tells himself it is only strange because it is rare. He almost believes it. Before this story goes any further, before the wedding countdown starts pressing in on everyone in this house, and the walls start closing around secrets that have waited decades to surface, there is something worth saying plainly. If a story like this is the kind that keeps you up later than you meant to stay, hitting subscribe is what tells us to keep bringing you into rooms like this one. It costs nothing, and it means everything to a channel built entirely on stories exactly like Adaora's. Chaewon-yang has been groomed since childhood for exactly this moment, walking into a house that will soon be hers, greeted by staff who already treat her like the mistress she is about to become. She learned to smile at exactly the right angle for cameras before she learned to ride a bicycle. She learned which of her father's business partners to address by title and which by first name before she learned long division. Everything about Chaewon has been built, polished, and positioned for a purpose, and that purpose has always been this marriage. She does not know the woman who kept her champagne glass filled at the last gathering by the name Adaora. She does not know her by any name at all, has never once needed to, because staff exist in Chaewon's world the way furniture exists, necessary and invisible in equal measure. She only knows that something in this house feels different tonight, a static charge in the air she cannot quite place, and Chaewon-yang did not survive her own family's business by ignoring things that feel different. They discuss the wedding the way other people discuss quarterly earnings, venues, alliances, the optics of a joint appearance before the ceremony, the exact families who need to be seated where the cameras will find them first, the specific order in which rival lieutenants must be greeted so no one reads insult into a handshake. It is, on paper, a perfect conversation between two people who understand exactly what this marriage is for. Chae-won watches Jae-sung's eyes throughout the entire exchange and notices for the first time in the 2 years they have known each other that they are somewhere else, somewhere past her shoulder, somewhere down a hallway neither of them has mentioned. She does not ask where, not yet. She simply files the observation away the same careful way she files everything, in a place she will return to the moment it becomes useful. She is not in the room, not really. She stands at its very edge, tray balanced, eyes on the floor, doing everything her training has ever taught her to do, to become part of the furniture rather than a person in it. And still, Jae-sung's gaze finds her twice before the conversation with his fiancée is even finished, quick and involuntary, the way a tongue keeps returning to a sore tooth despite every instruction not to. Chae-won catches the second time. She says nothing. Her expression does not so much as flicker. She simply refills her own glass, unbothered, composed, and watches her future husband's attention drift somewhere it has no business drifting, filing that too away for later. Woo-jin has protected this family for 15 years, and in 15 years he has learned that the most dangerous people in any house are rarely the ones who raise their voice. He noticed the shattered decanter report before anyone bothered to mention the maid's name attached to it. He noticed too that Jae-sung had not ordered anyone dismissed, had not even asked for a full account of what happened, which for a man who demands full accounts of everything is its own kind of confession. That, more than the broken glass, is the detail that keeps him walking these halls 2 hours past when his shift should have ended, running his mind back over every conversation he has ever half listened to about the quiet maid nobody remembers hiring personally. He does not yet know what he is looking for. He only knows, with the same instinct that has kept him alive through 3 attempts on the family's life, that something in this house has shifted, and shifted quietly enough that only someone paid to notice quiet things would catch it at all. She has never opened this door. She has also never needed anyone to tell her that behind it is a narrow staircase, and that the staircase turns left before it turns right, and that at the bottom there is a room that smells like cold stone and old paper, faintly underneath everything else. She knows this the way she knows her own name. She has no memory of ever learning it. It happens more often than she has ever told anyone. A hallway that feels familiar before she has walked it, a room number that surfaces in her mind before she has read the label, a smell that pulls at something behind her ribs with no story attached to it at all, just a feeling heavy and wordless that she has been here before. Her hand drops back to her side before it reaches the handle, and she walks away faster than she means to, her heartbeat climbing so hard she can feel it in her throat, the sound of her own pulse louder in her ears than the empty hallway around her. If you are still with her at this point, still awake, still turning this over the way she is turning it over, drop a comment and let us know you are still here. Tell us your favourite emoji or the one that matches whatever mood you are watching this in tonight. And if you are watching on a TV, hit that like button so we know you made it this far. Tell us where you are watching from and what time it is where you are, because a story like this deserves to be shared across every time zone it reaches. He tells himself he is reviewing staff records for security purposes only. He tells himself this twice before he admits that every folder he has pulled tonight belongs to a woman named Adaora Balewa, and that her employment file is thinner than it has any right to be after 3 years of service. No family listed as next of contact. No previous address that leads anywhere real when his people run it. A recommendation letter from an agency that, according to the call he just placed himself rather than delegate, closed its doors 6 years ago and left no forwarding record behind. Jae Sung-moon has built an empire on the principle that everyone is exactly who their paperwork says they are, until the paperwork lies. And somewhere underneath the part of him that runs an empire, a smaller, quieter part of him is almost relieved that hers does. It gives him a reason to keep looking that has nothing to do with the way she looked at him last night. He tells himself that too. He does not believe it any more than the first thing. She was not trying to break in. She only meant to see if the door at the bottom of the stairs looked the way it did in her mind, the way it had looked for 3 years in dreams she never told anyone about, dreams she had stopped mentioning even to herself, because there was nothing to be gained from chasing a feeling that never resolved into anything solid. But the vault light comes on before she can explain any of that to herself, let alone to the man now standing at the top of the stairs behind her, drawn down by a silent alarm she did not know existed, and Adaora understands, in the space of a single frozen breath, that her invisibility has just run out completely. There is nowhere to disappear to, not down here, not with cold white light pouring over her from above, not with Woo Jin's radio already crackling to life at his hip, calling for Jae Sung by name. He does not run. Jae Sung-moon has trained himself never to run, because running tells a room you are afraid before you have even confirmed there is anything to fear. But he moves faster down those stairs than he has moved in years, and some small, honest part of him already knows, before he reaches the bottom, exactly whose face he expects to find waiting in that cold vault light. He is right. That knowledge unsettles him almost as much as finding her there does. Neither of them stole anything from that vault. Someone left something instead, resting in plain sight on the one surface in that room no one but Jae Sung is permitted to touch. A photograph, old enough that its edges have softened with handling, showing Jae Sung's late father standing beside a young African woman, one arm curved protectively around a small girl standing between them like she belonged there, like the three of them had been arranged that way 100 times before. Jae Sung has never seen this photograph in his life. He has gone through his father's private effects more times than he can count since the funeral, cataloguing, inheriting, memorizing every asset the man left behind, and never once has this image surfaced among them. Adaora has seen that little girl's face every single day for 26 years, in every mirror she has ever stood in front of, though she has never once been able to place the 2 adults standing on either side of her. Her knees give out before her mind finishes catching up to what her eyes have already understood. That is her, the little girl in that photograph, standing between a man she has never once been told the name of, and a woman whose face she cannot place no matter how hard she tries, no matter how many nights she has lain awake trying, is her. She has spent 3 years telling herself she came to this house looking for answers, rehearsing that sentence so often it had started to feel like the whole truth rather than half of one. She had no idea the answer would look exactly like this, waiting on a stranger's desk, in a photograph she was never meant to see, in a house she was never supposed to feel at home in. Her breath comes in short, uneven pulls. Her hand stays pressed hard against her mouth, as if the only thing keeping the sound trapped inside her chest is the pressure of her own fingers. He has built his entire life on the belief that his father kept no secrets from him that mattered, that the empire he inherited came with a complete map, every room accounted for, every debt and alliance already known. He is looking at proof, right now in his own hands, that this belief was never true, that his father walked through at least one room Jae Sung never knew existed, and left someone standing in it who is, somehow, impossibly, now, kneeling on his office floor. And somewhere beneath the shock of it, quieter than he will admit to anyone, including himself, Jae-sung feels something shift that has nothing to do with the empire, the wedding, or the photograph at all. It has to do with the woman on the floor beside him, shaking, and the sudden violent certainty rising in his chest that he is not going to let anything happen to her. Whatever this photograph means, whoever put it there, whatever war it is about to start. Woo-jin does not enter the room. He has served this family long enough to know when a door is closed, even while standing open. And whatever is happening between his boss and the maid on that floor is not a conversation he has been invited into. But he memorizes the photograph anyway, from where he stands, every detail his eyes can pull from that distance, because 15 years of protecting the Moon family has taught him one unbreakable rule. Whatever secrets surface in this house eventually turn into threats, and threats are the only thing Woo-jin has ever truly been paid to see coming before anyone else does. He does not call for anyone else. He does not summon Woo-jin inside, does not reach for a phone, does not do any of the things a man in his position is supposed to do when a piece of his own history detonates in front of him without warning. Instead, Jae-sung Moon lowers himself to the floor of his own office, an act so far outside his own character that some distant part of him watches it happen like a stranger, and sits within arm's reach of a woman he has known by name for less than a day. He does not touch her. He is careful about that, careful in a way that feels deliberate rather than distant. He simply stays close enough that she is not alone with whatever she just found out about herself. Adaora does not look at him. She stares instead at her own hands, at the faint tremor still running through them, and when she finally speaks, her voice comes out smaller than she has ever allowed it to sound in front of anyone in this house. She asks him quietly if he believes any of it is real. He does not answer right away. When he does, it is not the answer of a man protecting an empire. It is the answer of someone who has just watched every certainty he owned come apart in under a minute, and found, underneath the wreckage, something he is not yet ready to name. He tells her that he does not know what is real yet. He tells her that he intends to find out, and that whatever it costs him to do that, he will pay it. It is the most honest sentence Jae-sung Moon has spoken inside this house in years. She walks back to her quarters alone because she asked him to let her, and because some part of her still needs to know she can hold herself together without anyone's hand at her back, even his. 26 years of not knowing suddenly has a shape to it, blurry and unconfirmed, but a shape nonetheless, and Adaora finds she does not know whether to be grateful for that or terrified of it. She thinks of the woman who raised her, the woman she has always called mother, and wonders for the first time in her life whether that word has ever meant what she thought it meant. She does not have an answer. She is not sure she is ready for one yet, but she keeps walking anyway, because stopping, she has learned across 3 years in this house, has never once made the truth arrive any gentler. By morning, every member of staff in the Moon estate knows something happened in that office overnight. They do not know what. They only know that the woman they called invisible has not been invisible since, that eyes follow her now down every hallway she used to disappear into without a single glance thrown her way, and that whispers move faster in a house like this than any truth ever could, gathering detail and distortion in equal measure as they travel from kitchen to laundry to gatehouse. Some of the older staff, the ones who remember Jae-sung's father best, go quiet in a different way entirely when her name comes up, a silence that feels less like gossip and more like something closer to memory. Adaora feels every one of those stares like a hand against her back, pushing her toward a door she is not ready to walk through. Not yet, maybe not ever, if she had any real choice left in the matter. She no longer has one. He tells her, in front of every whispering member of his staff gathered near enough to hear it, that she is no longer to be treated as household help. He does not explain why. He does not owe anyone in that hallway an explanation, least of all the ones who have spent 3 years calling her invisible behind cupped hands, and he says it in the same flat, unshakable tone he uses to end wars between rival families, a tone that leaves no room for anyone to ask a second question. Adaora says nothing. She is not entirely sure her voice would hold steady enough to use right now anyway. Chaewon hears about it before the hour is out. The wedding, the alliance, the empire two families have spent decades building toward this exact union, all of it suddenly balanced on a decision Jae Sung-moon made in less time than it takes to walk down a staircase, for a woman whose name Chaewon still does not know. She decides quietly that this is no longer a detail she can afford to keep filing away for later. Neither of them opens that door tonight. Adaora is not ready for what waits behind it, and Jae Sung, for the first time in his adult life, finds that he is willing to wait until she is. A patience that surprises him more than it surprises anyone watching him make that choice. But the estate does not stay quiet for long, and somewhere beneath the floor they are both standing on, something that has been buried for 26 years is no longer content to stay that way, pressing up through the marble and gold of this house like a second heartbeat neither of them can quite ignore anymore. If this is the kind of story that makes you need to know what happens next, tell us in the comments, because whether Adaora ever finds out what is behind that basement door, and whether Jae Sung is ready for what it costs him to help her find it, depends entirely on how many of you are asking for it